Hello, welcome to this video on common sense along with slop, right? These are the two themes, common sense and quote unquote slop, right? This is the first video on the channel. I'm not going to explain who I am. You can just learn who I am, okay? But anyway, we're going to preface it with a quote by Charles de Gaulle. This will be the common sense aspect of this video. So I'm going to read out the quote by Charles de Gaulle of France, of French fame. It is very good that there are yellow Frenchmen, black Frenchmen, brown Frenchmen. They prove that France is open to all races and that she has a universal mission. But, brackets, it is good, on condition that they remain a small minority. Otherwise, France would no longer be France. We are, after all, primarily a European people of the white race. Greek and Latin culture and the Christian religion. Right? So let's just quickly break it down. What is he saying, right? It should be fairly obvious, but what he's saying is France is France because of the French, right? It's an amalgamation of all these things which have clashed together and through, let's say, spontaneity almost, has created a nation, right? A lot of, culture a lot of the time has come down to chance and all these things. But the final product cannot be denied, right? The final product is France. It's here, and hopefully it's here to stay, right? That's, in my view, a common sense judgment, right? That doesn't take a particularly great mind to come up with that idea, if you will, right? But apparently this is a bold statement today, right? And if we just ended the quote that way, that France is France because it's French, right? And because of, all the added years of history, we could be met with the accusation of being low IQ, of being a dreaded populist, and all these things, which are generally quite negative, pejorative terms, right? If we just ended the quote there as a common sense, if we just spoke with what I would consider common sense, we are simply a populist. Now, I'm going to now display a video, and I'm just gonna talk about the implications of just using that video in a argument, let's say. So as you've seen, that video was terrible, right? It doesn't take a genius mind to work that out, right? But so we use that in an argument, let's say, because it's inevitably going to be on Discord, right? Anyway, so let's say we're arguing some prick on Discord, right? Or any fucking app where you can send a video or whatever, right? But it's inevitable, or Twitter, right? It could be a Twitter argument, okay? But it's one or the other. And you use that as an argument against why mass immigration is bad, right? Use this video of a beach in Southend or something from my memory, sorry, and it does genuinely look like Somalia, right? The response which I think he would be met with is that this is low IQ slop, right? But that doesn't take away the truth that this is not a desirable image. This is not a desirable state you want a UK area to be in, right? That kind of ignores the point. It has been attacked simply because people who are not of a great wit, not of a great mind, engage with it and are seriously frustrated with it, right? Because let's think, who is most outraged by videos like that, right? It's the working class, right? The working class voter is well, the stereotypical working class person is depicted as a reform voter, and just mindlessly racist against immigrants and migrants, whatever, people of different nationalities, right? But that doesn't take away, like, first of all, are they though? Is the frustration that they have, like, don't you think that's partially rational when they see that and they did not grow up around any such environment, and it is just completely alien, it is foreign, right? This now, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought again. This is a raw video. I don't really care about the how good it actually is, right? Things will improve over time, but with this association, oh, this is low IQ, only idiots engage with it, right? Only idiot working class people, because that's what they are insinuating. The people who say this is low IQ slop, they genuinely see the working class as beneath them, and they're dumb enough to fall for it, right? They're dumb enough to be offended at this site, right? But if this goes to their, if they see this clown show, this circus, in their own area, they're not going to be as liberal as they proclaim when this is outside of their town, on their beach. They're not going to virtue signal and say, hey, you're too dumb to realize that this isn't actually that bad, right? You're too dumb. We've seen this before. No, you wouldn't be saying that because you'd be mad, okay? It's and this is the thing. They portray it as slop until it affects them, right? Until it affects the middle class, until it affects people of an even richer background, right? It's low IQ, and it's stuff only the working class should be mad about, and it doesn't concern me, right? This is all it is. This is all it is, and it's just so cowardly. So cutting edge, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But I would not use this video in a debate for simply the reasons which I've already mentioned. It would be considered slop, and it's not what people would consider a respectable argument, right? And that's part of the issue. Logic can only get you so far, right? Because debate is all centered around logic and blah blah blah. So whoever has the cleverest point, even though the cleverest point doesn't correspond to reality half the time. So anyway, let's consider the reaction against this video which we've seen, right? The understandable frustration people have when they see that video, which is just, it's usually quite a forlorn reaction. People are like, there's the often heard lament, I just want my country back. It's what people hear when they see such videos in the comments, right? And and what does that stem from? It doesn't stem from a intellectually crafted point, right? And that's what liberals see this as precisely the issue, that it does not come from up here. Well, it does come from the brain, but it does not come through the constant deliberation which the age of reason has brought upon us. No, they're mad because it comes from our forefathers, right? Reactions like this were instilled through instruction more than anything, and environment, right? These were not positions that we were reasoned into, we were taught. They were more implicit, that this is bad, that we don't want our beaches to look like Mogadishu, right? We weren't taught that outright, but it was implicit in our upbringing when we saw fatherly virtues, when we saw fraternity, right? When when simple peace and quiet was the norm in English areas or wherever, British areas, I don't really care. But the English cultural status quo is quiet, and it's, I don't say meek, but to yourself and not prying or anything like that. It's certainly not what's in that video, right? And it wasn't through logic we worked that out. It wasn't through logic we worked out that what contained in the video is bad. It was simply through upbringing. We weren't reasoned into this, and that's what people see as precisely the problem. It was our prejudice which led to this judgment. Our common sense led to this judgment, right? And when something is presented as simply common sense, like the De Gaulle quote, like that video, how just the horrors in that video, right? Nobody wants to see that. When it's just common sense, that is not good enough for the liberal. The liberal needs academic papers. He needs all these things, right? When he has eyes, right? And sorry, I'm just going to go on like a little Nietzschean, like a little Nietzschean ramble, right? He was skeptical of dialectics, right? Arguments, logically formed arguments. Why? Because that's what the con man does, as he would say. The con man often tries to convince people with all these great, formidable arguments about how good his product is and how great it is. But his reason isn't the test of that. His reason can fortify his scam, but it is ultimately what actually happens which judges his product, right? It's our eyes are better. Our brain is better than whatever he puts out, because we can understand that it's nonsense when we see it, but his reason can convince us otherwise, right? That's what it is. The liberal is the dialectician in this regard. He will convince you that being punched in the face is good, right? He will convince you that reality is actually good, when reality is it couldn't be much worse. If we look at that beach, that is not what we would see 20 years ago on a beach, and apparently this is good, and it's the way it's always been. No, it hasn't. Our eyes tell us otherwise, and that's all there is to it. They're only arguments, right? And common sense always prevails, right? Common sense is the true form of knowledge. It's not the faulty academic knowledge liberals put out, all the stats, how they reduce life to academic papers and all this nonsense. It is with your eyes are your perfect judgments, your intuitions. Most of our arguments are formed by intuition, not by logical reasoning. Even the liberals' worldview is not really through logic, it's just through environment. Our environment created our worldview, and I'm going to go out on a whim and I'm going to say our environmental worldview is right in this regard, and that this has never been the case. Britain's beaches have never been like this, and they never should be, and that this is not the way, right? We can be convinced otherwise, but I know intuitively that they are wrong, and common sense will prevail.